We stand up to the crooked Democrat prosecutors all over the country. If I fly over a state that happens to be Democrat, let's call them into a grand jury. Nobody's ever weaponized like this group of people. They're maniacs. We stand up to the rhinos, communists, and the anti-energy extremists. We stand up to the open borders fanatics and the pro-China special interests and the fake news media, of which we have quite a bit of it right here. A lot of it. We put workers first, we put farmers first, and above all, we put America first. We put America first. In our 4 incredible years, and they were incredible years, we achieved more for Iowa than any president in American history. It's not even a contest. And in particular, the farmers, they know better than anybody, working hand in hand with Iowa's leaders. I was the most pro-farmer president that has ever been in the White House by far. I was rated that by everybody because I appreciate the farmers. I know how smart they are, how good they are, and how hard they work. Nobody in history did more for farmers of our country, the great farmers, than I did. To protect family farms, I virtually eliminated the unfair estate tax or death tax. You know, remember I used to say, look, I'm trying to get this passed. I don't know if I can get it. But if I do, if you love your children, you can leave your farm to your kids. If you don't love it, you don't have to worry about tax. No tax! They call it a death tax. That's not a nice word, but, you know, very appropriate. If you don't like your kids that much, or if you don't like them at all, which happens on occasion, don't leave them a thing. The tax won't help you. Don't worry about it. Does anybody in here not like their children? Oh, be careful. Oh, we got to be careful with that. The problem is the fake news media is going to report that as fact. You know that. You're going to have a lot of explaining to do. He loves his boy. He loves his family. We also gave a giant tax cut to family farms that operate as pass-through entities, a big thing for you farmers, which constitute more than 90% of all agricultural production in the United States. So we got the pass-through done. Nobody thought it could be done. I repealed Barack Hussein Obama's ridiculous Waters of the United States rule. Do you know what that is? It sounds so nice, Kim, it sounds so nice. Waters of the United States. I said, I'm going to get killed when I repeal this one, because the only thing good about it was the title, Waters of the United States. And I repealed it, a federal power grab over every ditch and every puddle on private land that make it sound like it was a lake. You couldn't use your property. They really were taking your property away. I'll never forget when I did it. I had a group of farmers and builders, home builders, standing behind me, about 50 of them. And when I did it, half of them, these are men, and in some cases, about 5 women, they never cried in their life before, maybe when they were a baby in their mother's arms. But they're not criers. Half of the people were crying. I gave them back their rights. I gave them back their property. I mean, it was an incredible thing. And our Department of Agriculture cut 7 old regulations for every 1 new regulation, saving farmers and taxpayers $262 million a year at least. I ended the NAFTA disaster. That was a disaster. Worst trade deal ever made. And I replaced it with something you like very much, with the USMCA, Mexico and Canada, best trade deal ever made. You know how you know it's good? Mexico and Canada want to renegotiate the deal. I see they're up there. We want to renegotiate. It's not working so well. We want everybody to be happy, but it's better that way than the other way. For for decades, we had to live with NAFTA. What a disaster it was. But the USMCA, we're very proud of that. Everyone said that's another thing couldn't be done. We did a lot. At my personal insistence to Prime Minister Trudeau, the USMCA pried open Canada's dairy, poultry, and egg markets for American producers. They were shutting us out. You have no idea what they were doing. I stood up to China like no administration has ever done before. And I brought in hundreds of billions of dollars of tax and tariffs and all sorts of revenue pouring into our treasury from China when no other president had ever gotten literally 10 cents, nothing. They came in and they took our country by storm, and we stopped it, and we made one of the greatest trade deals ever. We were mistreated by China, and our farmers were mistreated more than anybody else. And I took a list as to what amount that bad treatment was, and I went to he did a great job, Sonny Perdue, Secretary of Agriculture. I said, Sonny, let me ask you a question. I want you to figure out over the next couple of days or sooner, how much money did China rip off our farmers in this country? You have to tell me. He got back to me, and he gave me it on a yearly count over a few years, but the total was $28 billion. And I told China, you have to pay it. And you know what? They paid it. They paid it. And you all, many of the people in this audience, got a check. I took it out of the tariffs that I charged China. We had a lot of money left over, I can tell you that. We had hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions left over. We took a lot of money to save the steel industry. We saved a lot of industries. We handed checks to the farmers for $28 billion. Did anybody get a check in this room for the farmers? Because you got to be. Yes, good. Not as many as I would have thought. You all got checks, but maybe you're not in that business. But we're all with the farmers, and they got $28 billion. Nobody saw that one coming. That was one that they said, this is incredible. But he also made a deal with China, and the deal with China was a phenomenal one. My people wanted $15 billion in agricultural purchase. I said, you have to buy. And otherwise, we're not going to do business with you and other things other than the farms. And I said, what's the number, 15 billion? I said, did I hear you correctly? I thought they said 50 billion, right? They said 15 billion. I said, I think I heard 50 billion, asked for 50 billion, and they agreed. And that's why you're still doing well today, Kim. You're doing so well today. Even though they aren't totally living up to it, it's still more money than anybody thought possible. And the reason they're not totally living it up is they have no respect for the Biden administration, but still more money. That's why the farmers are continuing to do well. But China and the USMCA were just the beginning of our fight for the American farmer. I also got Japan to slash or eliminate tariffs on over 90% of U.S. food and agricultural exports. People knew that. What a difference it made. I dealt with the great Prime Minister Abe. He was my friend of Japan. And that one who, unfortunately, as you know, was assassinated by a madman. But what a great man he was, and his people loved him. But he was very fair to us, and we opened it up because we were being treated very unfairly by Japan, as we are by almost everybody, I have to tell you. I can't think of anybody that we made a better deal. It's hard to believe that we survived, but of course, we do have $34 trillion in debt. So I don't know if you call that survival. You know, eventually that comes back to haunt you, right? But we didn't make any good deals. We had no good deals, so we made a lot of them great, and some of them phenomenal. The European Union agreed to nearly triple its beef imports and opened the markets to American soybeans at a level that nobody thought was going to happen. I also won our farmers gigantic concessions from South Korea, Argentina, Brazil, Guatemala, Tunisia, Ecuador, Morocco, and many, many more. I was working very hard on Europe, and that was going to be a deal that was done because they don't treat us very well. Europe, believe it or not, you know, it sounds nice. A lot of us indirectly come from Europe. Sounds very nice, but they treat us very bad on trade, very badly on trade. And even if you look at the war, if you look at what's going on, we're at about 150 billion, and they're at about 25 billion. I would say that's not right, you know, but somebody's got to tell them. All you have to do is say, listen, you're delinquent. You got to up it. You got to up it. It's not fair to our country.